Imagine a painting that made Paris gasp, not because it was crude, but because it looked at the modern world and refused to flatter it. Édouard Manet did that again and again. He painted scantily clad women who would not smile for polite society, a picnic where the figures ignore the rules of perspective, a barmaid whose reflection refuses easy explanation. He set the city, the cafe, the theater, the railway platform, and the canvases of the past into conversation, and sometimes into argument. Tonight we'll follow that bold, often scandalous conversation. We'll meet Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, Olympia, a bar at the Folies Bergère, the Pfeiffer, and the railway. 5 paintings that shocked, puzzled, and ultimately remade how people looked at modern life. Listen for the sparks: scandal, wit, sympathy, and a painter who refused simple loyalty to the Academy. This is Édouard Manet, painter of modern life, painter of provocation, painter of quiet revolutions. Born in Paris on January 23, 1832, Manet grew up inside a cultured, comfortable household. His father was a senior official. The family expected steady professions: law, diplomacy, the Navy. As a young man, Manet once considered joining the Navy, a flirtation with adventure that he quickly abandoned for the studio. He studied under Thomas Couture, a respected teacher who preached history painting and polished technique. But Paris itself became his classroom. The Louvre, where he copied Velázquez and Goya. The cafés and theaters where the city paraded its fashions, its contradictions, and its energy. Early works like The Spanish Singer show a young artist fluent in bravura color and exotic detail, already looking outward. Curiosity: the young Manet preferred copying the Spanish masters in the Louvre to sketching from antique models, a small rebellion that would shape his eye. If you trace Manet's touch back to sources, 2 names step forward: Diego Velázquez and Francisco Goya. He admired their compressed handling of paint, their frank portraits, and their willingness to paint court and life with equal candor. Japan, too, entered his imagination. The flattened space and cropped compositions of Japanese prints caught his attention and nudged him away from strict academic illusionism. That influence mixed with the gritty immediacy of Parisian modernity: street life, cafes, the theater, and the new iron and glass railway stations. Curiosity: Manet collected prints and drawings and would study a single detail for days: a glance, a sleeve, the angle of a hat, until it felt new in his hand. Art history met everyday life, and Manet stood at the intersection. Manet's signature is paradoxical: bold, sketch-like brushwork that reads as finished, high-key color that refuses polite smoothing, black used for structural punctuation rather than mere shadow. Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, painted in 1863, upset viewers because Manet placed a nude woman casually among fully dressed men and flattened space so the figures read like characters on a stage rather than figures in a deep illusion. A deliberate modern staging that questioned tradition. Olympia, 1863-64, intensified that shock. Here a nude stares back, frank and unidealized, while servants and props whisper about commerce, class, and desire. In a bar at the Folies Bergère, Manet complicates reflection and perspective, using a mirror to unsettle viewer assumptions. With the Pfeiffer, he strips background away, using bold contour and color to elevate a single figure into an icon. Each masterpiece performs a similar trick: borrowed technique, radical subject, and a refusal to play by academic rules. Several moments changed Manet's course. In 1863, the Salon de Refusés, the exhibition of rejected works, offered a public stage for composers of controversy. Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe showed there, and Paris roared. Rather than retreat, Manet leaned into modern life and politics. The execution of Emperor Maximilian, painted in 1867, was a turning point because it moved him into large-scale, current-event painting, a kind of modern history painting that referenced press events, empire, and violence. Another turning point was personal. His friendships with younger painters like Monet, Renoir, and the painters who later called themselves Impressionists. He was neither insider nor true outsider, often aligned with them but stubbornly independent. Curiosity: despite his closeness to the Impressionists, Manet rarely exhibited with them and refused the label, insisting his allegiance was to subjects and seeing rather than to any group program. Manet's toolbox was deceptively simple. He used oil on canvas, a traditional support, but his handling was brisk. He favored visible brushstrokes. Instead of smoothing every boundary, he let paint breathe. sometimes a thin wash, sometimes a thicker accretion. Define impasto, a technique where paint is laid on thickly so it retains texture. Manet used impasto sparingly but effectively, juxtaposing textured strokes against flat planes. He worked from life and from memory, combining plein air glimpses, that is, studies made outdoors, quick notes of light, with studio compositional control. For reflective complexity, he turned to mirrors and multiple viewpoints, as in a bar at the Folies Bergère. He also rewired tradition. Black was not just absence of light, but graphic scaffolding that organized his picture space. Across his career, Manet returned to several obsessions: modern life and its rituals, the female figure in the context of commerce and display, scenes of leisure tangled with social unease, and a fascination with old masters refracted through contemporary streetlight. Portraiture interested him not for flattering likeness, but for psychological presence. Think Berthe Morisot with a bouquet of violets, a painting that carries both tenderness and reserve. The balcony and the café recur as liminal places where public and private meet. Le balcon places people on a threshold, visible yet other. Manet also loved still life and floral studies late in life. In those quieter paintings, his brush grew looser, his touch more melancholic. Curiosity, the model for Olympia, Victorine Meurent, was not only a famous model but also an accomplished painter, an irony often forgotten when we fixate on Manet alone. Manet's work was a lightning rod. Critics called him vulgar for painting modern subjects with such bluntness. Conservatives accused him of abandoning finish and morality. Yet in those same shocks lay the seed of his reputation. Le Déjeuner and Olympia were labeled obscene by some, but admired by many who saw in them a new honesty. He suffered rejection from the official Salon at moments, but the Salon des Refusés paradoxically amplified his voice. Over time, the debates shifted from moral outrage to formal admiration. Artists learned from his economy of stroke, his daring compositions, and his willingness to paint contemporary life. Curiosity. Manet's scandalized canvases sold badly at first, yet many younger artists kept returning to his images as lessons in how to see the present. Manet stands as a hinge between realism and impressionism, and a crucial ancestor of modern art. He did not found a movement with manifestos. Instead, he altered the grammar of painting. By legitimizing present-day subjects, by trusting sketch-like brushwork, and by borrowing from the past to speak of the present, he taught a generation how to look differently. His loose handling anticipated Impressionist color and light. His flat planes prefigured later modernists. His psychological portraits influenced portraiture into the 20th century. Museums now place him as a lodestar. Curiosity. Filmmakers and photographers cite Manet for his cinematic framings, cropping, focus shifts, and figures seen mid-action, proof that his pictorial inventions cross media. Sprinkled through Manet's life are small, bright curiosities. He admired Gustave Courbet's truth-telling but refused to be pigeonholed as a realist. He loved Velázquez so much, he copied whole pictures in the Louvre as a form of study. The woman who posed for Olympia later exhibited her own paintings. His execution of Emperor Maximilian responded to a news event, an early example of art taking on current affairs. And late in life, he turned to flowers and quieter interiors with a new tenderness, as if retreat and reflection had sharpened his eye. These are the lateral moves that make his career less a straight line than a braided, surprising path. Édouard Manet died on April 30th, 1883, but his canvases continue to argue with us. They ask how to represent the present, how to balance truth and beauty, how to look without flattering. He taught us that scandal and sympathy can share a single brushstroke, that a modern subject, a barmaid, a picnic, a railway platform, can be a subject for serious painting. If you stand before Olympia or a bar at the Folies Bergère, notice not only what is pictured, but how the painting makes you position yourself, implicated, questioned, entertained. That is Manet's lasting gift, an invitation to see the world anew. As we leave these canvases, hear the city in his brushwork, sudden, alive, imperfect, and utterly human.